Story time about one of the worst customers ever. I got a new job at a coffee shop downtown. It was my first day out of training and I would be taking orders and making drinks on my own. I was a little nervous, but excited and ready to be by myself. Everything was going great until this woman came in. She came up to the counter and immediately noticed that I was new there. She said, "I'm a regular and come in almost every day. Write my order down and save it so I don't have to explain it to you again next time." At first I thought she was joking, so I smiled and laughed, but then I quickly realized that she wasn't kidding. She proceeded to order a very complicated drink, which I didn't mind. I was up for the challenge. I made her drink and handed it to her with a smile. Without even trying it, she said the color was off and requested I remake it. When I turned around to try again, she said, "Don't mess it up this time. It's not rocket science." I remade the drink, and this time she picked it up and looked at it, didn't try it, and complained that I put too much caramel in it and asked if I was trying to make her fat. I remade the drink a third time, doing everything she requested. This time she actually tried the drink and immediately spit it back into the cup. She then told me that I'm horrible at my job, called me incompetent and lazy, and of course asked to speak to my manager. It only got worse from here. Part 2 of the worst customer ever. After she requested to speak to the manager, I went to get the shift lead and explain the situation. He immediately knew what customer I was referring to. My manager went to speak to her as I remade her drink a fourth time. She demanded that the drink be free and that we also let her pick a food item on the house for wasting her time. When we refused, she went ballistic and started screaming that she would never come here again and that we lost a customer. She demanded that we get the owner of the store down here immediately and said that she wouldn't leave until the owner arrives. We told her that she would have to leave or we would call the cops. She continued screaming at us, took the drink without paying, and knocked over one of the displays on her way out. My manager said that this customer complained almost every day, told me I'm doing a good job, and thanked me for finally getting rid of a Karen. I couldn't believe my eyes when she came back a few days later. I was dreading having to take her order again. To my surprise, my manager confronted her about not paying the other day and knocking over our display. He then asked her to leave, but she went crazy again and refused to leave, and this time we did have to call the cops. Ultimately, she left before the police came and hasn't been back since. This is how I met my soulmate without ever actually speaking to him. I work at a small family-owned ice cream shop. This really cute guy would come in every Friday around 5. I never actually took his order as I was the one making the cones and sundaes behind the counter. He would always tell my coworker taking the orders, "I want whatever she's in the mood to make. Tell her to surprise me." And he would point me out. My coworker would deliver the message and he would look at me and smile. Each Friday when he came in, he would say, "I'll have my regular order, whatever she wants to make." I made him something different every week. I try to be creative and give him something new and fun every time. I would try really hard not to look over at his booth, but I would always catch myself staring. He started leaving me little flirty messages on his receipt with a small cash tip at his table. I started to write back on his orders with caramel or chocolate sauce on his plate the best I could. However, it wasn't very legible or practical, so I started giving him flirty little sticky notes with his order. It made my Fridays really fun and something to look forward to. I was waiting for him to ask me for my number or to ask me out on a date so we could actually talk to each other. This went on for weeks until he finally made the cutest move ever. Part 2, how I met my soulmate without ever actually speaking to him. After a few weeks of writing to each other on receipts, he finally decided to shoot his shot. He came in at his usual time, and I immediately started making him something new that I had in my head all day. Sweet cream ice cream with Oreos and little heart-shaped candies that I brought from home just for this. As always, he left me his note on the receipt with a tip, but it was special this time. It said, "It's my turn to make you something. Meet me at Jasmine's Fine Kitchen tomorrow at 9 p.m. The restaurant he was referring to was in the same parking lot where I work. I went home and spent about 2 hours trying to figure out what I was going to wear for my date. I showed up the next night to the restaurant, ready to finally talk to this guy. I walked in and I saw him waiting for me at a really nice table in the back of the room. The first thing he said to me was, "What can I get you tonight, miss?" with a huge smile on his face. It turns out he works as a cook at the restaurant. I of course told him to surprise me, just like he would always request from me. He went to the back and immediately came out with a 3-course meal that he had already prepared for us. We had the most amazing date and the rest is history. He still comes in every Friday to get his surprise ice cream order from me. This is why you should watch out for the nice guy. When I was 20 years old, I moved from Washington to San Jose. I started working for a large retail company and met a coworker named Chris in passing. He was always friendly and smiling. You know, a nice guy. We would chat here and there, but we were acquaintances at best. One day, I came to the store on my day off to grab a few things. He approached me and began small talk, leading up to asking me what my plans were for the rest of the day. I told him I didn't have any, and he convinced me to take a day trip to San Francisco with him so he could show me the sights. I was hesitant at first, but decided to go because it was a beautiful day for an adventure. He offered to drive, so I left my car in the parking lot. The entire day was wonderful. We had great conversations, and I got to see a lot of new places. I thought I had made a new friend. However, the later it got, I felt myself wanting to go home. We started heading back at 10 p.m., but as soon as I got in the car, I felt an instant shift in energy. Chris wasn't talkative anymore, but I shrugged it off to him being tired. 15 minutes before we arrived back at the store, he asked me if I wanted to spend the night. I politely declined, but he kept insisting. After declining a few more times, his demeanor became aggressive. This is when I started to panic because I realized that he wasn't going to let me out of his car. Part 2, why you should watch out for the nice guy. My mind was racing as I thought of how I could get out of this situation. I put my hand in my coat pocket and felt my keys. When we were a few minutes away from the store, he grabbed my arm and kept telling me, "It will be fine. I'll sleep on the couch and bring you to your car in the morning." My heart was racing, thinking of what he was going to do to me. His eyes had darkened and his smile had faded. His face was dead serious and it sent chills through me. Thinking fast, I replied, "Okay, I'll stay the night, but I need to grab a few things for my car. Is that okay?" He hesitated for a moment and then agreed. As he slowly pulled up to my car in the desolate parking lot, I jumped out before he could fully stop. I unlocked my car with the remote, jumped in, and quickly locked it after me. That's when he jumped out and started banging against my window, trying to open the door. Shaking with adrenaline, I slammed my foot on the gas and almost ran him over. I went to my friend's house that night, but knew I would see him again. He approached me a few days later at work, putting his hand on my shoulder and asking me, "Are you okay? You left in a hurry the other night." I quickly jetted away, but he followed closely behind me. I lost him at some point and avoided him for the next month. One day I walked into the store to see him being escorted out by 2 officers in handcuffs. We never found out why he was arrested, and luckily I never saw him again.